Over the last 30 or so years, there have been many studies into the effectiveness of psychological therapies, such as CBT, on chronic fatigue syndrome. Most of these studies were small, but in 2011, the first of a series of papers on the £5 million PACE trial was published, claiming that such therapies were effective. It caused a big controversy. Very few of these earlier trials used objective assessments to evaluate whether the therapies were successful, which I find very unsatisfactory. Their premise was that the symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome were caused by patients' false perceptions of the severity of their condition and their subsequent deconditioning. Presumably, the researchers concluded that if therapy improved those perceptions, this was sufficient to show that they had been successful. But of course, if their premise was wrong, all they had succeeded in doing was change the way in which patients answer questions, something which we know is easy to produce. Let me focus on just two of the four groups in the PACE trial. One group had 4 or 5 sessions with a specialist, the other had 3 or 4 sessions with a specialist and around a dozen sessions of CBT. With 160 patients in each group, the results are clearly potentially significant. One of the assessments used was the SF-36 Physical Functioning Survey, where patients were asked about the degree of difficulty they had with various activities. The group that only saw the specialist recorded a small improvement from baseline by the end of the year. The group that had additional sessions of CBT recorded a larger improvement over the course of a year. Half of these questions focused on walking and on climbing stairs, and to its credit, the PACE trial tested both of these aspects. They used both a 6-minute walking test and a step test. The group that only saw the specialist showed small improvements in both. The CBT group had recorded greater improvements on the SF-36 assessment, but when we look at their actual performance in the walking test and in the step test, we see that they are almost identical to the group that did not have CBT. In other words, CBT did not produce any improvement in these objective assessments. The PACE trial did not take this into account when they claimed that CBT was effective. In fact, there is no sound evidence that CBT produces actual physical improvements for patients with chronic fatigue syndrome. You can read more about this and other articles concerning the PACE trial and related issues in the Journal of Health Psychology. See the link below this video.